Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Industries Live, where, in case you just joined us and you weren't part of the first half, this is a show where we talk to some of our AWS partners that are really focused on industry-based solutions that run on AWS and the cloud. And thanks for joining us today. As you see, we have our chat open. So there's been some great discussion already. So if you want, tell us where you're watching in from, or if you have any questions while you're watching the segment today. And what we'll do, just to recap about what Industries Live is that this streams every other Tuesday at 8 a.m. Pacific time. And each week, what we do is we have a new guest from one of our industry partners, and they come on and they talk to us about what are the trends they're seeing within industry. Today, we're taking a look at insights within media and entertainment as an industry, but our next session is actually going to be on financial services, and we rotate it around. And what some of the things we found by rotating some of the industries around is you can start to see some commonalities and trends within different industries. And so even if the industry that's on, say, the week you're watching, it might not be your core industry, you might be able to pick up some nuggets or insights that you can carry back to your industry and apply them there. So a shout out there. Once again, my name is Jason O'Malley. I'm a partner solutions architect here on our, what we call the Industry and Solutions Center of Excellence team. And it's a global partner strategy team that's focused on myself, media and telecom. And I'm joined here today with my colleague, Karen, and co-host today. And Karen, if you'd like to say a hello to the new watchers.
Hello to our new watchers out there. Again, I'm Karen Foreman. I'm the worldwide partner lead in media, entertainment, and games and sports. And as Jason was saying, it's really great to be participatory in these events because you will see common themes, even though the focus here is on media and entertainment. Our previous guest talked about media supply chain, and that is really common whether you're in the media and entertainment space or in manufacturing and others that have supply chains. Our second guest for this episode is Andrea Callis, who's the VP of Media Archives at Iron Mountain. Andrea has an incredible background in archives, so very much looking forward to this discussion. And again, those archives can be documents. It could be for the healthcare industry, the imaging industry. Again, today's focus will be on media and entertainment, but it's really great to see these episodes week to week and how there's relevancy across industry. So let's welcome Andrea Callis.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Andrea.
Be here. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you. Andrea, you and I have had chats before, so I'm really looking forward to today's discussion. So tell us about Iron Mountain and tell us a lot about your background because you are oftenly very modest, but you have been working in archives with some of the most well-known and renowned archives across the globe. So hopefully you will share some of those insights and stories in today's episode.
Well, yeah, I've had the privilege of working in some of the greatest archives. You know, I've been a film archivist for many years. So I worked at UCLA Film and Television Archive, British Film Institute, Paramount Pictures, and Discovery, where I met you, Karen. So it's been a really wide and varied, amazing experience working in large collections, public collections, corporate collections. So I've just had the gamut of experience, and it's a super exciting time to be involved in archives, in my opinion. And so I couldn't be happier to be with Iron Mountain, working with another group of archivists, right? Because that's what we have within the Iron Mountain's Media and Archival Services team is there's a group of archivists that are helping other archives with all of their services, whether it's putting things in great environmental storage or boxing up a fragile document. But always, of course, when it comes to archives that need to be digitized, that's always part of the mix, right? No matter what other services we're providing, that's definitely part of the mix. But we work really closely with those clients because they may have all sorts of different materials that need to be digitized. So we need to have that intense expertise to know how to digitize a 2-inch video, right? Or how to be careful with, like a company's founding document. So it's the care around the materials in addition to making sure that they are digitized and available. So that's in essence what Iron Mountain does, work with those clients to find the best solution. And AWS has been a great partner in trying to do that because so many people are already working with the kinds of tools you're using and obviously the storage as well. So our connection has been a natural one too, and we've really appreciated that.
Well, thanks, Andrea, for that introduction. I've had the absolute pleasure to visit your facility on several occasions, and I will keep my NDA and my own personal archive, not to speak of it. But you really manage at Iron Mountain some of the most incredible archives, some of the most differentiated archives, music archives, film archives, as you said. So, can you talk to us a little bit about the different archives you see, and why are customers digitizing their content?
Well, first of all, it's really, just when you think about it, isn't it incredible how many archives are now available, right? Just think about, that the fact that, a student sitting in a dorm room can literally find primary sources from there, right? They don't even have to go to the library anymore. There's so much out there. And I think it's sort of becoming almost like a natural inclination for anyone with an archive. It's not even a question anymore that they must be digitized because that's the way they're discovered and used, right? So I think people think about how to digitize, which to digitize first, rather than an off switch of whether you digitize at all. That's not even a decision anymore, I don't think. I think and it makes sense, right? I mean, just in terms of, moving image content, film and video, I mean, I read somewhere that like right now it's like the market for video materials in somewhere is like 200 billion. And in a few years, it's going to be 500 billion, so our whole currency right now is in the moving image in a lot of ways. Every commercial we see, everything we scroll through, video is everywhere. So it makes sense too that people that have both moving images and music would want to get into the act, right? And the archives can create a great resource for that. So whether people have incredible photographs that they want to scan, and we have ways of making sure that those things are photographed in the best possible way with the best possible standards, and then also are available for people to search over, find for research, include in documentaries, purchase. Same with music. We can help people identify a master that has never been heard since it was first recorded, and then make that available for people to stream and license and things like that. So it's really satisfying, right? When you come to something where it's almost an undiscovered treasure in a different archive, and then it becomes available for people. It's a sort of magical transformation.
I've definitely seen that firsthand, Andrea, of like just seeing, taking these assets that may have been sitting idle, so to speak, and then just being able to not only take them and digitally preserve them to help, their longevity, but then also to find that new value that they can create. And it's cool to see the way that can find new audiences. I'm curious too, so with both with the digitization, but then also as the industry and sort of within the businesses itself, as there's a growing importance of making those data-driven decisions. I'm curious, how are you at Iron Mountain? Are you thinking about helping customers leverage, say, like the archive metadata they have and finding what's in the archive to help inform what are those, like their content strategy or production decisions?
I think there's two parts of that, right? I mean, part of it is the information that the archive itself holds, which could be, it could be documents about that thing that they are preserving, right? And so those could be scanned as well as the object itself or the film itself, and how you combine that information. I think the other thing too is, Iron Mountain is a big company, and we work with organizations that may have a film archive here, but might have a records management system over here, right? And those insights can actually go across each other, right? So there's, before AI was even an idea, tons of entertainment companies were working on how best to find their audience for the shows and movies they're producing, right? And what resonates with different audiences. And there was fascinating stuff going on with like, I remember some of the DNA of a movie and how you can dig down deep into understanding. I always think about my Paramount days, like Saturday Night Fever being an example of that, right? It's a fun dance movie, but it's also a dark movie, right? Until you get to that nuanced part of understanding what that movie is, how do you actually understand how another movie like it we'll have an audience response, right? So that digging down that nuance of what that content is about so you can find new audiences, I think there's incredible that we've just begin to discover how we can use information from the assets themselves, the video assets, the films, the stills, the information about those assets, and then maybe other information that might exist in that entertainment company in just another part of it, of the company, and that's really exciting about what Iron Mountain can provide, is because that's where we're going with our platform. And I think AWS is kind of thinking about that the same way, right? Where are those places where that data really interacts to give people insight? I think there's so much we're going to find out on how to help people there.
That's great. And I think especially you mentioned like the asset itself, but maybe there's ancillary assets related to the production that get digitized and captured too, and how that can inform. So I think that's a really cogent point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think data comes from so many different places. Like you mentioned, it comes from the scripts, it comes from call sheets, it comes from different things that are in production. And going back to how you made an introduction, when we met in our early days at the Discovery Channel, the natural history films that Discovery Channel was shooting had about a 40-to-1 shooting ratio. So we actually made new productions out of the existing B-roll for shows like Animal Planet and Animal Planet Kids. And when we did that, we dug into the B-roll and we tagged it manually with metadata and sort of became sort of our walking library science dictionary for ourselves. Now with the advent in technology, there's really a lot of opportunities, as you had mentioned, to OCR your scripts or to get other metadata involved. Talk to me about what role do you see AI playing in some of this new transformation for giving people access to their archives and their content?
I am just so excited about the potential, right, for content discovery. I mean, I'm obviously interested in that. And I'm just seeing tools pop up, some of the ones that you create, others that do that. And we're trying to track all of them right now, because I absolutely believe that, our way of helping people is to combine AI tools with archival services writ large, right? I just don't see how we could not offer that significantly to our clients. I think that's what they're going for. I mean, like, think about that amazing Discovery Wildlife catalog, right? I want to search for a lion catching, a hyena, and he's going 40 miles an hour while he's doing it. Like, you could actually get down to that granular level potentially, right? Like the ability to actually dig into the archive and find things that are either for, like I heard this phrase the other day. I loved it. That some people are not calling themselves documentarians anymore. They're calling themselves archival filmmakers. I love that, because it just means that there is so much more than just a basic, sort of talking head, interview, show some footage. That people are starting to be really creative with how archival footage is woven into news stories. And I think AI can help expand that enormously, right? Maybe people are looking for a particular, even like cadence, or a way a music works against an image, or all sorts of different creative ways of digging into that archive and finding ways of exploring that will also give people other creative ideas about potentially what to shoot. My mind gets blown thinking about the potential that I can't even imagine yet, right? It's kind of like, when I think about digitizing archives, I think about when it was like just 23 years ago-ish, that I was saying, one day we're going to go to the internet and we're going to search a title and we'll be able to see any video, any movie we want, right? Like, and here we are, and it's way beyond that, right? We couldn't have even imagined, how this turned out, right? And I feel like we're at that starting point with AI too. Like, we can't even imagine how much this is going to impact creativity, and that the archive is a part of it. I'm super excited. So, with that team at Iron Mountain, this is what I'm driving them to do. Let's listen to our clients. Let's find out what they need. Let's build something that's really going to help them. Because I think, because they're thinking that way too, and we're thrilled that we can partner with them.
I could see, and it reminds me too. So I was part of a project. This is several years back, but it was where you got access to a huge archive, and then went through it to pull out items and to find new audiences for them. That process, we utilized the cloud technology to help scale and to release it. But one of the things that we didn't really have as much available at that time was the like AI technologies to really help sift through that archive and find those diamonds in the rough and those moments that really came, that kind of like really exemplified the greatness of that archive. I'm curious, as the technologies such as like multimodal AI come in and start to become more prevalent in workflows and also in like conversations maybe you're having, I'm curious, how are you seeing that combine, with your archival expertise to say like enhance search precision, accuracy, finding those nuggets?
I mean, Karen knows I always use this phrase, when library science meets rocket science, right? Like I do think we owe a huge debt of gratitude to, the librarians who have really worked with us to categorize the world, right? They have, the card catalogs that were, once the only way of finding things. They worked hard on making sure that there were authority around what was a place, what was an actual, who was this person, to definitively identify and accurately do that. And we have drawn upon that enormously. And we continue to, and every archive has used that kind of library science to make sure there's a way in to find what they're looking for, right? Now with the tools that AI brings on top, it's just better, right? And I do think that structured data, that cataloging influence is incredibly important for precision and accuracy in search, so that this is actually the movie you're talking about, or this is the place you're talking about. But then the ability of AI to sort of just vibe on that and bring more to the table is amazing. So, and I've seen it work really well when there is that structured data to get closer. Even if it's things like, all right, let's just pull the closed captions and make those searchable, right? You can get down to a time code, right? And then you have a visual search over that also brings you more to that. So that's super exciting. I think the other super exciting thing is we're seeing that, the fact that you can use more of a natural language search in your prompt for AI means your audience for archive can really grow, right? Think about it. Like, we've gone from going to a card catalog and going over to a library desk and saying, now, where is this Dewey Decimal section in this library, to find like this. The steps are incredible, right? But then, in sort of in the medium term, even though archives were digitized or things like that, you still had to have that consultant archive to help the researcher, right? And I think we still will. I don't think that's going to go away. The knowledge about a collection is always going to be something that helps people find things. But I think people actually not having to phrase things in a way that only an archivist understands is just going to open up the archive enormously. And I think it's going to help all archives find their constituents, find ways of doing things that are new and bring life to the organization that archive lives in. Because no archive stands alone. It's always got its own clients, right? So our clients have clients of their own. And so that's how we know we're successful. If they're making their clients happy, then we're doing a good job.
I think that's impactful too, because maybe search systems of the past had to have like that specific syntax, and you had to be really familiar, like search, like sort of Boolean search this within this within
but
this.
Not that, right?
Yeah. And so now you can it opens it up to a wider part of the organization that they can just say, I'm looking for, cheetahs in the, animal footage film, and it's able to identify that without having to be an expert at it. And I think that's really powerful as well.
Yeah.
I think it's also expanding the semantic search and understanding, where you can say, you could be specific as I want cheetahs in the Serengeti, but you can also say I want content that is soft or gives a feeling of soft. And it could be a wind or the beach or things like that. So I think it gives you a much more expansive opportunity for searching capabilities. I think it would be a great time to go to our audience. We do have a question from the audience, and I want to thank those that have been extra engaged with us in the chat screen. So there's a question in the chat that says, as archives become more accessible, and have pieces found a new life, or is there new audiences that it wouldn't have had without that searchability?
I absolutely believe that's true. I think that especially when it comes to the kinds of explosion in documentary filmmaking or archival filmmaking, as it's I'm excited to be called, the way people are using archival footage is brand new, and I think also the fact that people understand that digitization is sort of not an option anymore means more and more content is available. I mean, I come from film archives, right? And the difference between when I started my career and now in terms of accessibility of just movies being available to watch is massive, right? And I think that's only going to continue.
Yeah. It's interesting as we talked about the fusion of library science and artificial intelligence. Talk to me a little bit about some of the specific benefits some of your clients are experiencing from that fusion, and how is that translating onto the screen or into how your customers are handling their archives?
Yeah, I think we really are trying to listen to our customers as they build it. Like, so for example, if there's a music library and one of their functions is providing music for commercials or for other films or things like that, they'll license some of their music for that, right? There may be times when the initial request isn't right for some reason, right? AI could find a really amazing alternative, right? Easily and quickly. Like, okay, maybe that doesn't work, but here's a bunch of other ones that have the same beat or have the same feeling or have the same idea behind it that you can use instead. That's a really interesting one, right? Or maybe even somebody says, I'm thinking about something like this, but I'm not sure. Well, here's 6 or 7 things to think about. And in footage sales too, another one where, you can, the ability for people to get just much more specific in terms of the kinds of images they're really looking for means more and more potential use of that. So those are the 2 areas I'm starting to see more, but we think it can be potentially for anybody that has an archive. And it could be in an academic environment, it could be in a media and entertainment environment, right? Just the specificity, the precision, the depth of knowledge is just going to enhance whatever project people are working on. Oops, sorry.
Yeah, I've seen a lot in, believe it or not, higher education. A lot of these archives are moving. A lot of sports archives are moving. Healthcare, the amount of content for imaging and then being able to share those results with doctors worldwide. So it is really it's amazing the expanse of content that you all touch.
Yeah, no, and it's true. Video is everywhere, right? And it will continue to expand into just sort of every corner. So that's the other part that we're trying to do at Iron Mountain is make sure that the expertise within our group helps people that may not be in traditional areas of video, right? And audio. So we can help those people who also need insights for that kind of information, right? Video is turning from just something fun to watch into something that could have complete data for an industry or, have insights into all sorts of different areas, right? Or be evidence, right? So it's not just on the big screen going to the movies and in your living room when you come home anymore, right? It's everywhere.
I liked your point earlier too about the sort of that like similar content and recommended content, because I think that's one of those things that like doing that as a person and trying to tag all the similarities is just like AI is just so well suited for that, of like noticing trends that you wouldn't know, or trends and similarities between content. And I think that's really powerful as well, especially if you have something that's like close, but you're like, oh, I want this, but slightly different, and it can help you find that in a way that maybe was difficult.
Yeah, that ability of AI to actually inspire, right? To actually sort of suggest, and I was like, oh, that's a good idea, or no, that's a horrible idea. I'm glad you didn't. Glad I didn't go down that path, right? Like, it really can be. I mean, I think people using tools right now for just general, generative AI already know this, right? So they're coming to archive search with that understanding of how these things work, and applying that to their ability to do better archive search and find different materials, and that's exciting too.
Totally agree.
Andrea, in addition to the work that you all do in digitization, you do a lot of work in audio and restoration. Is there anything you want to comment on that while we have the audience here?
Oh, it's just been so amazing because, my background wasn't in music, but now I'm sort of wish it had been because, oh my God, the collections are just, mind blowing, beautiful, incredible. And the people that work with them too are working with, often collections that come from all sorts of different sources and come to them in all sorts of different kinds of shapes. Some of them not cataloged at all, some of them in great shape, some older music masters, right? So helping them go through that entire process of, like we have a tool that actually takes an image of all 6 sides of a box really quickly and then does OCR even on handwriting. So those are for, collections where there's never even been any cataloging. So we can start there and then go all the way through with handling some of the older audio formats really carefully while we digitize them. So we're really getting the best out of them that we can. And then making them available for their clients to use for, just for releases, for, for other kinds of materials that they're doing for licensing, for all sorts of different events. And, they're really, they have, in a lot of ways, the music industry has had a step ahead of some of the more of film companies and broadcasters in terms of that transition. So we can learn from them too. I think it's also interesting to see how they've done as an industry, and they're very much involved in technology and how that can help this. So having the music archives be a part of it is really exciting.
Great. I think we're coming close to the end of the show. I was curious, Andrea, any last kind of things you're excited about, you're looking forward to going forward?
I mean, I think that, we're trying to continue to, as we work, with individual clients, right, and what their needs are, that helps build out our tools generally, right, that Iron Mountain provides. So that's the exciting part, is just learning from our clients what they need so that we can work with you guys to build out, better solutions to actually, the soup to nuts archive path from something sitting on a shelf to something that's really available and searchable by AI. So that's what I'm just excited about, is, sharing, knowledge with our clients about what we know about AI, but also hearing back from them what they really need, so that we can translate that into better and better tools for archive discovery.
Agreed. And I think we have our URL. So if anyone's interested to find out more about Iron Mountain's services, you can check that out. I think it's in the chat as well. And with that, I think we're almost at time. So Andrea, thanks you so much for joining us today. This was really great discussion, and having been through some archival projects myself, it was great to hear your insights about what you're seeing. So thanks for joining.
Obviously, I love talking about archives, so thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Andrea, thanks for joining us, and I echo that. Archives to me never get old.
Yeah,
I like that.
I love it.
That. All right. Well, thank you so much, and thank you everyone for joining us today as we wrap up, and especially everyone commenting in the chat and engaging and helping make this a really great episode. Don't forget that this is a bi-weekly show, so we'll be back in 2 weeks, and that'll be August 12th, I believe, and we'll be, talking about the financial services industry. So we're switching it up, and so make sure to don't miss that. Subscribe to the LinkedIn page, the YouTube page, the Twitch page, and with that, thank you, Karen. Thank you, Andrea. Thanks for all of our guests, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining on this episode of Industry Live.